Hey, this week on the 167, Pastor Rick and I talk about how your step of faith could make all the difference. Welcome to the 167. Welcome back to the 167. I'm here with Pastor Rick George.
Good morning.
And nobody else, because
just the two of us.
We can make it if we try. Just the
two of us. You and I.
You and I. Yep. Everybody else
you
is
go.
sick or out of the office or voting or
Whatever.
had something better to do today.
Just another reminder that, well, we don't really need them. No, that's not the moral.
It's not today is there's just not as much spice. You know, it's
Okay. Yeah.
it's the regular chicken sandwich
Just
instead of the
plain-
spicy.
Yep, just the plain chicken.
Yeah. All right. So today we're going to be talking about our week 4 of our Move series. We're talking about taking steps out in faith. And one of the great things that happened this weekend that was kind of off people's radar, unless you have a teen, is we had our youth conference, right?
Yep.
We were very blessed to have Pastor Cameron with us, who has big vision about not just, doing things for our own youth, but the youth of the community and even regional by hosting our own conference. And you began your message by highlighting one of the things that happened at that conference, which was an idea from one of the speakers.
Yeah. So, and I echo that. Pastor Cam, Cameron's a great young man. He has a passion and a heart for reaching this next generation. And it is helpful, inspiring to me to listen to him talk about the young people, because it can be pretty easy to paint a pretty negative picture of the younger generation and all that's happening in that generation. But listening to him, being a part of that conference and just seeing the passion in the youth inspires me and gives me hope that there are a lot of young people that are passionate, that want more of God. And so, give Cameron a shout out. If you're listening, watching this, when you see Cameron, make sure you encourage him, because he's doing an incredible work. But one of the speakers, I believe it was on Saturday evening, talked about the path that you're on, and he's talking to young people, and he's saying you might not want to wind up like your dad. You might not want to end up like the person in your family that you despise, but that's the path that you are on right now. You're doing the things that you despise about them, and it's going to take you to that same place. So if you don't want to wind up like that, get on a different path. You have to do something different. And so this whole idea of taking a step of faith, it's an intentional step towards God. People are taking steps all the time, but they're taking steps on the wrong path, a path that the Bible says it seems right, but in the end, it leads to destruction. And everyone is walking on a path. And I would guess that the vast majority of people would say, I'm on a good path. I'm on the right path.
Right.
Because it feels right. But just because it feels right doesn't mean it is right. And so you have to look at where that path is ultimately going to lead you. And it feels good right now, but when you look out in the future, is it leading to a place where you're going to experience a lot of hurt, a lot of destruction, a lot of division, a lot of turmoil, a lot of hurt and pain? Or is it leading you ultimately to a place of peace and joy and blessing? So, it was a great message on Saturday that applied specifically to the to the kids that were there, the young,
To the teens.
Yeah, the teens. So we got probably 13 to 17, 18-year-olds, and it's imperative that they get on the right path. But it is just as imperative that young adults and those in their 30s and 40s, and then the older adults in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, that you assess, am I on the right path? Is this going to ultimately lead me to the destination that I want to arrive at, because it's going to take you to a destination. It's just a matter of, is that the destination that I'm wanting to arrive at?
Well, and I think the stakes get exponentially bigger, like the older you get, because like you said, when you're a teen and tween, it's like, okay, I'm looking at my career, I'm looking about what college I go to. And yet when we are adults with children, our path oftentimes, like you're saying, it's like, well, I don't want to be like my dad. Well, but if we have children right now, we are the ones setting those expectations and going, I think everybody knows the parent, because it's easier to look at other people, right? So I'm just going to take the easy thing. Everybody knows the parent that you look at that you're like, they're like, I don't know how my child ended up like this, or I don't know how our family ended up in the situation. You're like, really? Like you don't see the like that, those small steps that you've made. And it's like, it's, some of those things are so obvious, and yet for us, they're not. You know what I mean? Like I know that I'm doing stuff right now that other people are going, Pastor Lucas is doing this. Like it's so obvious, and yet I'm going, I don't see it. And so that was one of the questions I wanted to ask today is, how do we know what path that we're on? Like, how do we recognize that?
I mean, it takes some time. You have to look at the surroundings. Take a look at a road map. Right. So if you take off on a trip, like a physical trip, going on vacation, it's just a driving trip that you're going on. As you're going, you have no idea really where you are. I mean, everything kind of looks the same when you're driving, but it requires that you stop and look at a map, or you'd get off the highway and you say, what are the surroundings? What are the things that would be indications that I'm on the right path? I'm getting to where I want to go. If you're trying to get to the mountains to go skiing, here in, December, January, February, right, and you're driving and then you realize, you get off and it's getting warmer outside, it's just, it's flat.
There's a lot of sand. Right?
Yeah. There's like, we've been going south the whole time and we're in Texas.
Yeah.
And we're not going to ski in Texas. Like we wanted to get to Denver. You're just driving on I-35 or you're just driving on a highway. Everything just looks like highway. It's fine. It feels good. It's right. I feel comfortable. Got the tunes going. I'm feeling good. Can't wait to ski till you realize we're in Oklahoma City.
I always love that panic moment where you see the sign. It's like you've been driving for a while. You're not paying attention. All of a sudden, and it says, it's like Dallas, 200 miles. And you're like, wait, Dallas?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I don't believe that anyone, it might be an overstatement. Somebody might have it as their goal, but very, very few people have it as their goal when they start on a path to destroy their life, to destroy their family, to destroy relationships, to just wind up at this place of bitterness and hurt and isolation. That's not the goal.
Right.
But that's oftentimes what happens, because when you start off, it felt good. Like, I feel great about this. Like, it makes me feel validated or whatever it might be. And then a year, 2, 5 down the road, it's like destruction, loneliness, hurt, division. All these things start to crop up in life. And you're like, what happened? Yeah. And then you're like, oh, I'm nowhere near Denver. I'm in Dallas.
Well, and I think that's key too, because...
And Dallas is a good place, by the way. I love Dallas.
All the love to Dallas.
Yeah, no harm to Dallas.
We go there all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's one of the really key things is, I know a lot of people that are just like, I just go with the flow. And so they get on a street and they're like, well, I think I'll turn left. I think I'll turn right. Like you said, whatever's feeling good at the time. And it's like, well, where are you headed? I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, I talk with people and work with people like that, where I'm like, okay, what do you want? Like, what's your 5-year goal? Like, what do you want your family to look like? What do you want your career to look like? What do you want your spiritual life to look like? And it's like, they don't know. Like, I work with people with discipleship, of course, and I'm like, what is it that you want to see in your relationship with God? Like, like, what do you want to do? Do you have any goals for your spiritual walk? Well, I think I should read my Bible more. How much more? Yeah. Like, do you see yourself, I'm waking up in the morning and I have my quiet time. It's a half an hour. We do a, family diva. Like, what does it look like to you to have a good spiritual life? Because most people have no idea.
Right.
They just think more, I should be a better Christian. I should be a better person. I should want more. And if you don't have that destination, you're going to drive for miles and miles and miles and end up right back where you started because you're just, turning willy-nilly, and there's no destination.
Yeah, and that's not a bad plan for a Saturday if you just want to go out. I do that on the motorcycle. Trudy and I took a trip, a weekend trip one time. We were gone for a couple of days, and we were in Arkansas, and we just took off one day on the motorcycle, and every intersection that we came to, I would just ask her right or left, and she would say right. So we would turn right and see where that took us. Come to the next intersection, left. Okay, we'll go left. And we saw a lot of beautiful things. Okay, but we knew that that was one day, we're just going to go out and explore. Then we're coming right back. And we had a plan to get back to the hotel so we could then get back home.
I was going to say, you have to at some point stop yourself and go, where am I?
Yeah, and we did. We had to stop, and I'm getting my phone out because we had no idea where we were. I'm like, we got to look around for some landmark or some indication of where we are so we can figure out how to get back to where we want to be.
Well, and I think a lot of people are in that phase right now where a lot of the people I'm talking to, at least, where they're like, I've just tried, I just threw a bunch of things at the wall recently, and we just tried this and tried that, and we don't seem to be getting anywhere. And it's just like, well, where do you want to be? Well, I don't know. It's just like, you gotta, like that's when you gotta go, okay, let's get back to where we started. Let's make a path.
Yeah, and so it kind of ties into the seed then. So what seed are you going to plant in the ground?
Yeah.
So you have to decide, what do I want my harvest to be? And if I have a harvest in mind, then I have to plant seeds accordingly. So I can't plant soybeans if I want to have a cookout and have corn to serve.
Yeah.
So what is the harvest that you're wanting to reap? And then you're going to plant seeds along the way, intentionally or sometimes seeds just fall out of your pocket. Yeah. Right. So what are you carrying? What are the seeds? Get rid of the ones that you don't want. Intentionally plant the seeds that you do want to reap the harvest at a later date.
Well, and those are one of the things that you said this weekend was, you're gonna reap a harvest. It's what kind of harvest you want to have.
Right.
So either you're out, like we joked about sowing your wild oats, for like, okay, I'm sowing hatred. I'm sowing these things into my life, into my heart. Or I'm sowing the word of God. And either one of those things, like you said, it's not like, oh, I plant one seed and I get one blade of grass. It's like you plant seeds and then it grows and grows.
It multiplies, and God uses it. And so when you're planting good seeds, it's not, I'm going to plant one little seed and I'm going to get one little sprout. I plant my seed, whatever that is. We've been talking about planting seeds, of relationship, planting encouraging seeds, planting seeds of serving, planting seeds financially, right? So if I plant a financial seed and I say, I'm going to plant my $1,000 and I'm going to plant it in God's soil, it's not going to just accomplish $1,000 worth. It'll go into the soil, it'll germinate, and it'll be multiplied into more, not because of my efforts, but because of God's efforts.
Right.
The same thing with serving. I'm going to stand and open a door. Like, I'm going to plant my seed. I open the door, smile, and shake a hand. God multiplies that, and it transforms people's lives. I can't explain it all. Right. I just know how it works.
Well, and it's one of those things that we try and sow this vision as much as we can in our First Impressions ministry, where people are like, well, I'm holding a door and I'm smiling at people and I shake a hand. I'm like, yes, but statistically, people decide whether or not they're going to stay at your church within like the first 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if they walk in and nobody greets them, nobody says hi, nobody helps them check their kids in, they're like, I'm out of here. Doesn't matter how good the service is, doesn't matter how good the message is, unless it's, of course, like you probably turn that around. But
well, I doubt it.
But it's like, those are the things where you're trying to tell people, like, it's these small things that end up sowing seed, that end up growing, and that person's in the baptistry going, yeah, I'm here because I made a decision for Christ. But they're there because they made a decision for Christ, because they stayed and heard a bunch of messages about Jesus. They joined a life group. They did but all that started with they survived the first 3 minutes of coming to your church.
Yeah. And so, pastors love to use, I've used the example before. I'm about to use it again.
Let's do it.
But people love to look at the big name, like the Billy Graham.
Yeah.
And gosh, look how big it's supernatural. It's power. And it is. Billy Graham established a ministry that was incredible. But it started because of a guy that nobody's heard of. You know his name?
I know the story. I don't know his name.
Yeah, Mordecai Ham.
Mordecai Ham, that's right.
And just a guy that nobody knows about who was faithful to plant his seed, to preach the gospel. Billy Graham happened to come, hear a sermon, get saved. God used that to change the world, literally, because of the faithfulness of Mordecai Ham to plant the seed that he had. Mm-hmm. He didn't change the world directly, but he changed the world indirectly because he planted the seed.
Right.
So, that's a great story. Pastors love to tap into that. But
is it the same story? What's the story where like the person that saved Mordecai Ham was like a shoe salesman or something? Is that the same story?
No, I don't. He was an evangelist.
Because there was some story where it's like that, where it's like somebody who is selling Mordecai Ham a pair of shoes, evangelized them. He's the one that planted it. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you know that story, put it in the chat.
I think that might be D.L. Moody.
Oh, that is D.L. Moody.
Yeah, I think it was Moody.
Yeah.
Another great illustration.
Yeah, shoe salesman, like shares Jesus with him.
So, but they are great examples of just doing the thing that's in front of you, planting that seed and saying, I'm going to trust God to produce something. I just have to be faithful to plant.
Well, and I think you got to make those decisions early because, like, I had a friend growing up. We were friends since the 5th grade, and he had every excuse. You know what I mean? Like, he had I think his mom was on his second stepdad when I met him, and so he just had a rough upbringing. His stepdad was, an abuser of alcohol and into pornography and all those kinds of things. And so, like, I would go over to his house and I'd come home, of course, smelling like cigarettes and all that kind of stuff. And it was just a really rough childhood. And I had talked to him, and he was just like, "Yeah, I've just pledged that, like, these men in my life have been alcoholics, and so I'm not going to do that." And so, I was like, "Oh, that's really, good of you." And he ended up coming to church with me, and he gave his life to Christ. And now he's a father of 3. He's a faithful husband. He's not, like, he made really intentional decisions. He's a veteran. He made really intentional decisions to kind of overcome the situation because he looked at, kind of the models that he had in his life and said, I'm not going to become that. And therefore, that's almost the thing, like, you're already set on that path in your home life. And he's like, no, I'm going to take the wheel and I'm going to turn hard to the left. And I'm just going to go, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to slowly turn this ship. And that's going to have generational impact.
Yeah. So it's just, being intentional, knowing what you want, making decisions along the way that are going to get you to where you want to be. Not just what you think is going to make you feel good now or in the near future, but what is it in the long run? Like, what is the harvest that I really want to reap? Whether that means even looking out into eternity and saying, where do I want to wind up in eternity? And then working back from there. Then where do I want to wind up in my old age? Where do I want to wind up in all these different stages? So
yeah, and I think that's a really important aspect of that is sometimes when people are like, well, how do I know what path I'm on? I always tell people, I feel like you got to get good at pattern recognition.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I can look forward and go, if I do this, this will be the result of that. And if you can make those long-term decisions. But I think in the midst of that, though, like when you were telling that story earlier about, like, okay, I start traveling and I'm looking for mountains and I'm like, wait a minute, this is the beach, like,
yeah.
But sometimes I think I've made that drive through Kansas on I-70 going to Colorado, and it's like, for the longest time, it's just like, there's nothing. Like, this flat is flat is flat, and I'm going nowhere. And I think one of the things that you said this weekend was sometimes an act of faith is just about obedience. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I thought there was a lot of wisdom in that, because sometimes we talk about, well, what do I get out of it? What do I get out of this? What immediate result? Like, we all love the stories about, I tithed for the very first time, and I went home and I opened my mailbox, and there was a refund check from the utilities company for the exact amount. And I'm going, I absolutely believe in those because I think God confirms what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if anyone tithed for the first time this week.
Yeah.
And then did anybody win the Powerball last night? Do you know?
I have no idea.
1.9 billion.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know either, but that would be a great story for New Life. When
Oh, that's ruin your life money.
probably creates a whole nother theological discussion about lottery and whatever. But could you imagine someone saying, I don't know. I just decided I'm going to tithe. And then the next day, I won the $1.9 billion
Lord,
Powerball.
I'm decided I'm going to tithe whatever you do. You know that one
Anyway,
guy. It's
so-
like if I win the lottery, I'll reverse tithe. Be like, okay.
Yeah. So anyway,
But I mean, like those are the points where it's like, what if I just ask you to do this just to demonstrate your obedience, and you don't get a immediate return, but it's something that's character building, and So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that when you said sometimes it's just about obedience. Like, what does that look like in my life on a daily basis?
so the obedience part. So if you
Other than winning the lottery.
Yeah, so if you take it out of kind of the spiritual realm or the tithing realm for a second, and so in your house or at your house you have a yard, and sometimes people have great looking yards, sometimes they're pretty bad,
Like
and,
mine.
Yeah, they're just full of weeds and dead spots, and you think, I want a green yard, I want a nice looking lawn. Well, it doesn't just happen immediately. You got to till the soil. You got to aerate or verticut. You got to clean all the old stuff out. Then you throw some seed down. You fertilize it, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait. And then some grass starts to pop up. And that first year, it might look a little better, but it's not what you're hoping for. And so in the fall, right? So you're like, man, it looked pretty good. But now it's fall again, and I'm going to verticut again, or I'm going to aerate. I'm going to throw some more seed, some more fertilizer, and next year it's going to look even better. And then over time, it just becomes a healthy lawn. And so my dad, funny story, he's lived in that house for 50 years, right? And people drive by and tell him how awesome his lawn looks, but he doesn't do a lot to it. Like very little water. He has somebody come and take care of it 3 times a year, put a little fertilizer down, but it's been a 50-year process. 50 years ago, he did a lot more work, but now the roots are established. The ground is good. The grass is healthy, and it grows. So you have to put a lot of effort in the beginning, get it healthy, and then it's maintenance. You take care of it. You make sure you're doing the little things along the way. Spiritually, same thing. You got to invest. You got to invest. You got to take care, establish, good root systems in your faith. And then over years, it becomes more and more healthy. You don't just fertilize it like crazy one year and then forget about it. It's a lifelong process that becomes easier and easier as you mature, as it establishes good roots and the nutrients are in the soil and you're established.
Well, and I see that in discipleship a lot because people go through seasons. Like they'll be in a season of intense learning. They'll find a class on Right Now Media, or they'll, they get hungry. People just get that hunger and they go through like a YouTube series. They find a speaker they like and they start to consume all the content.
Yep.
And, they'll get their Bible out and be like, it just comes alive to them. And they'll go through that season for a couple of years. And then they'll come to me and be like, I'm not reading it like as voraciously as I used to. And I'm like, well, do you know this part? Oh yeah, I know that. You do know that. And it's like, well, now you can kind of settle into, like let's examine closer at these different things. Let's work on scripture memorization. Let's do these things. Let's apply it. Recently I was listening to a guy that he said that, most Christians don't have a knowledge problem. They have an application problem, and it's like, it's the thing where like, okay, you went through a season of intense learning. Now let's go through an intense season of practical living.
Yeah, the way I've said it in the past, because I heard it and then I just stole it and now I use it and it's mine. Right?
Yeah,
So that
absolutely.
idea. But I've said oftentimes in the past that we are educated well beyond our level of obedience.
Right.
So it's not the lack of information that we have. Like I know what I should do. Like nobody needs to tell me what my sin is. Nobody needs to tell me what I need to stop doing and what I need to start. I know that. So it's not a lack of information, it's the lack of application. Right? So sowing seeds, we get it. I got to sow the seed if I want to have a harvest. Plant the seed like that.
Right.
Make the commitment. Do the things now that you know that you should do. All the things that you're uncertain of, well, you can learn those along the way. Just do what you know to do now. Be faithful, be obedient, and then trust God.
Right. And so I want to end kind of today by talking about what are some of those seeds that we can plant today that are going to pay dividends.
Yep.
So like what's one of your top 5?
So the seeds that you can plant, obviously where we are right now in the life of our church, we have an incredible opportunity to invest financially into building a church that's part of building the kingdom. So planting financial seeds is a definite way that you say, I will make a commitment and I will plant my financial seed in the soil of God's field, right? What God is doing, I'll plant that. But it doesn't end there. And I'm going to mention this week that money alone will not build the kingdom.
Right.
Right. So you plant the financial seed, but simultaneously, right, you're going to plant some other seeds. So you're going to have a few different fields that you're sowing seeds in. And so you're going to plant the seed of serving, and I'm going to plant the seed of faithful prayer, and I'm going to pray for my church family. I'm going to serve in my church family. I'm going to plant some seeds of encouragement where I'm going to speak well of people and build them up and come alongside of them. Those are all seeds. I'm going to plant some seed of study, right? The information that I have, I'm going to plant it and let God multiply my information. So it's not just one or the other. It's saying, I'm going to plant the seeds that I have and let God take care of multiplying it and producing a harvest. I'm going to plant a seed of evangelism. I'm going to speak to that one person and just be faithful to talk to them about Christ, and then let God be responsible for multiplying the effects of that. Because I could be the Mordecai Ham
Right.
that speaks to the Billy Graham who then goes and changes the world.
Well, and I want to echo that because I think somebody was recently challenging me where they said, it's not about like, when you're trying to be productive, they said, just block out time every day to do a little bit, and it's like, if you do that over the next year, you'll have accomplished way more than if you try and binge it, over and over and over again. But I think about those seeds in the financial sense of like, we literally have programs right now where I'm holding them back, where I'm like, no, don't invite anybody else. We do not have the space for that. And it's like, but if I just turn this loose, it'll blow up and it'll, minister to a bunch of people in the community. I'm like, I know that you are, which is why I'm telling you, you cannot do that because we don't have the space to accommodate that. And so it's like, the building, the finances, it's not everything, but it's part of, like I said, there are literally some things that we are bottlenecking because intentionally because we don't have the space to do
and
it.
there is a lot of buzz going on right now in our community with the possibility of this church being built, and people that don't go to New Life are talking about the church that's being built. There's a lot of buzz, right? So we get to be a part of establishing this church that's going to be a part of people coming, a part of that buzz, the curiosity that the Holy Spirit can use to then change their life to go change the world. And we get to be a part of that, which is super, super exciting to me.
Yeah. We hope that you guys are a part of it too. Stay tuned for a 7-minute story, and we'll see you guys next time here on the 167. Hey, welcome back to 7-Minute Stories. I am here with Anna Saylor and Kimberly Price. Say hi to everybody, Kimberly.
Hi.
There you go. All right, so we're going to do kind of a combo 7-minute story. Tell us a little bit about how you guys met, how you guys teamed up, and then what happened recently, which was a really cool experience.
Okay.
So tell me first, how did you guys kind of meet each other and end up at New Life together?
So 6th grade, I kind of came in, and then Anna was like, I'm a weirdo. And I was like, cool. And then we became friends, and I brought her home, and then she didn't leave.
Yeah, it just like I went up to her, like I seen her, and like I don't know why, because I don't ever introduce myself like that. But I went up to her and I was like, "Hi, I'm Anna, and I'm a weirdo." And she was like, "Okay." And then like she literally took me home, and I never left, ever.
Literally. And then she moved in, and then we met Mike, and because I was in the hospital.
Well, let's back up for a second. So you moved in with Kimberly.
Okay, well, at first it started as like my home life wasn't that great, and it was affecting me very greatly. And so Kimberly was also doing really bad. So we were both very suicidal. So instead of trying to get help, we thought if we just died together, that like it would all go away. So we did like lots of things, like at the age of 12 and 13, just trying to die for like a span of like 2 years, and like we just until like one day we like almost did. Like we went to the lake and we were like, hey, let's swim out to the Bowie. And it was like, okay. And then, like, we went out there, and then we actually almost drowned. And then from that day forward, we were like, we don't want to die. Like, that's not what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's whenever we started to kind of change our lives. But then in that period of time, like, I went through something. And so then, I fully moved in. So, like, at first, it was, like, 2 years. I wasn't really living there, but I was staying there for, like, weeks at a time and then going home for a couple days.
Yeah. And then did you guys find us through youth first, or did you guys come to Sunday morning service?
Church.
Yeah. Tell me
Yep.
about that. How did you guys end up?
So we had a prayer session, and then all together, me, Anna, and Kinsey, and then Mike.
Because your
was-
mom was like, these girls need prayer.
My mom was like, "Oh, you were in the hospital. That's it. That's enough. You need God." And then so Mike and them set up a prayer session whenever, like 5 days after I got out of the hospital, and then Mike was like, "There's Sunday. Like Sunday, y'all need to be there." And so we were there Sunday, and then he introduced us to youth. He was like, "There's also youth for you girls too," and then we were like, "We're not going every Wednesday." And then we actually went to youth, and then we came home because Mike took us, and we were like, we loved it. Like we go every Wednesday.
Pastor Cam's pretty awesome, isn't he?
Yeah,
Shout out
he's-
to Pastor Cameron.
he
Shout out
is.
Pastor Cam.
Yes, we love him.
Yeah, and so it kind of started off as that. And then it went from that, and then kind of like changed. Like I don't know how to explain this, but like it was like we were still like not understanding at first. Like we
Yeah.
just like we kind of just went to go because we thought it was a fun time, and then it grew from just having a fun time to wanting to change our lives. And so whenever Mike one time he took us to breakfast and he was like, "Hey, I paid for the camping trip, like the youth camp," and we're like, "What?" And like I was like, I'm not going to camp. Like we were like, we're not going. Like that's weird. And but then whenever the time started coming up to go, like we got excited. Like we were excited to go.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever we went, like the first 2 days, we didn't like it because we had to get up in the morning, we had to walk 20 minutes, then we had to sit there, we were asleep. Like it was bad. But then like the third day, like best experience I've ever had, and it was really really good.
The last day camp was the best one. Like
I like-
everyone had, I like the third one too, but like the best one was like the most like down to it, like down to earth kind.
I
Yeah.
liked it whenever
Tell me-
everyone cried.
Tell me about that experience. So, like, what was impacting about it to your life?
Because so like this one main preacher, that they waited for him for the last one because he was like he knows like the way with words, and then he got up there and he just started preaching, and then like he wasn't sugarcoating anything, like he said everything how it was, and then like a whole bunch of people started crying. And the most like overwhelming part was because I asked God to give me more gifts, and He gave me to where I could feel people, and I could feel like everyone emotions, and it was like oh, and then like that was pretty much it, and I was like wow, like
And so you guys
Cool.
have been growing with that. You went to camp. You had that experience. You started to change your lives, and you went from, my understanding is, you went from being prayed for to praying for other people.
yeah,
And then lately, you guys came in because I was at Freedom that Tuesday night. You guys have been coming to the Freedom group, and I think it was your grandpa told that story.
yeah.
But why don't you guys tell it? Word.
So we went to Worlds of Fun that day, and then we went to McDonald's after Worlds of Fun. We were just gonna go to the one in Gardner, but like my dad's like, this one's closer, we'll just go here. And then the lady, she was tweaking out, and then we were just sitting there, and she just kept on, and then I had thought about it. I was like, we need to pray for her, but I was like, you know, and I was like, well, no, like I was kind of like second guessing it, and Anna said it, and I was like, well, both of us both got it, so we need to do it.
Don't you love that when God tells you something, you're like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
And then someone else like, we should pray
we're
for that
at
person.
McDonald's.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah,
won't do
because
that.
it was like because everyone was like judging her, and I'm like, and I sat at the table, and I was like, there's obviously a reason she's doing what
Yeah.
she's doing. Like, she's not just gonna do that. Like, I was like, she's going through something. I was like, we should pray for her, and Kimberly was like,
I
we
got
should
that
pray
too.
for her.
I was like, I got that too, and I was like, both of us got it. Like, we have to do it now. So we went up there, and then first mom was like, you're in McDonald's, like, you need to wait until she comes up. Me and I was like, we don't care. We going up there. And so we seen her come out. We're like, can we pray for you? And then she was like, what? And then, like, it's like she's shocked. She was shocked. And then we asked her, and we prayed for her. And actually, the manager came out and prayed with us.
That's cool.
And then she was just like la-di-da, like going with it. And then Anna got the word addiction. And then she just opened her eyes.
And she
was
started
like-
laughing.
she
And
started
I didn't
laughing.
understand why she was laughing. And then like Dad goes there like the next day, and she was like, "Where's the 3 angels?" And we're like, he was like, "The angels," and he was like, "The girls that prayed for me." And apparently she went home, and like for the first time ever, she didn't smoke or drink. She just went to bed. And so after that, like she woke up the next morning, and she went to church for the first time, and like I forgot how many years,
Like
it was,
20-something years.
yeah, it was a long time. And like because the last time, and then she called her mom after church, because the last time she talked to her mom, she told her mom to quit pushing Jesus into her, like she doesn't want it.
Yeah.
And so whenever she called her mom, she finally talked to her mom, and then come to find out, she quit her job and she moved back with her mom so she could pursue following Jesus.
And to help her dad, because whenever she called her mom, they had this long talk for hours. She felt that her dad was sick, and so she moved back there, and she helped. Now she's helping out with her dad, and she truly believes we're angels. She's like they're angels. She's like, they're angels.
Yeah.
My dad's like, no, they're humans. She's like, no, God sent them down. They're my angels.
Yeah.
She calls us her angels. So yeah,
Well,
it was
and-
pretty fun. Pretty.
And how does
interesting.
that feel to be able to like follow God's word, break someone's addiction, you know, pray for them and it changed their life?
It motivates me.
Yeah.
I've always, like, ever since like I started changing my life, like I've been more motivated to help other people grow. But like knowing, like seeing that, like, I don't know, it gives me more like courage to do more.
Yeah. Like, it's not like me having pride, like I did that. It's the fact that, like, wow, like God's using me for that. Like, God's using me to help others. Because I've always loved helping others. That's why I got her off the street. And, like it's just awesome. Like, amazing, like, how God can turn you to this, like, from this terrible person and to the way you were feeling before to, like, this amazing person that's just going out helping people back and front. Yeah, you know,
Back and
Well,
forth.
back
Yeah.
and forth. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you're talking about how many times do you think that you've like felt that prompting, like to go help somebody and you're like, no.
I've
So
done
many.
that my whole
so
life.
many.
But like, 'cause I struggle with social anxiety. So like, I don't like when people look at me, like I don't like going in public. I don't like it. But whenever, like, I don't know why I just did it that day, and like that helped me a lot. Now I'm like not really as terrified to talk to people and pray for them.
Because I think if you do that and you get a positive result, it reaffirms like, oh, I can make a difference.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's great. Like I said, I love watching you guys grow and like you said, going from that, I watched you guys go into the prayer room and then like now you're taking people into the prayer room. And so I think that's fantastic. So thanks you guys for sharing that story, and we'll join you next time here on the 7 Minute Stories. If you enjoyed this episode of the 167, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, get notified, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. Tell all your friends to listen as well. Make sure you go over to newlifegardener.com and check out all that we have to offer as a church, and check out our messages online as well. Thanks for listening.